Today on Queen Me, I am joined by somebody who knows that words are more than just words. They're how we lead, connect, and build something that truly lasts. Hailey Krajewski is a certified conversion copywriter and messaging strategist for women entrepreneurs who want to build businesses that both serve their clients and themselves. With a background in nonprofit development, a degree in communication and psychology, and experience as a strategist and mom of four, Hailey understands the emotional and practical challenges women face when they're trying to grow a mission-driven business. She helps coaches and creators turn their voice into copy that converts without losing the heart of who they are. Today, we're talking about voice, visibility, and building a business that does not burn you out. Take a listen. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited for our conversation. It was just so interesting too how we met and got connected and all the things. It's just funny that it's like this circle moment where we're back on talking about you and your work.
Yes, I am so excited. Thank you for having me, Ashley.
Oh, of course, of course. Now, one of the things that I've always loved about you and have read about you and all the work that you do is that, really good copy is at the heart of everything that we do when you're in business, when you're an entrepreneur, whatever that looks like. And so I'm really excited to dive into that and also just learn about your journey and how you balance everything as a mom of four. We were talking earlier about all the balance and things. So I'm excited because you wear so many hats. You wear a lot of hats: nonprofit development director, you entrepreneur, copywriter. I want to start at the beginning. So really, what led you to make this leap into this work? It's fascinating, right? I'd love to hear a bit more about your journey and how you got where you are right now.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you. I'm excited to share all of the things. And I know just as women in general, we wear a lot of hats, and sometimes we forget to celebrate that as well, right? And just kind of recognize all the things that we're doing because it can be hard. But nonprofit, so I won't go all the way back, but I started my work in nonprofit and I loved it. And I still work with nonprofit founders and different nonprofits to help them with their messaging and their storytelling because storytelling is so important. And I know we'll get into that, but just being able to tell your story in a way that connects is really critical to your success, whether it's a nonprofit or an entrepreneur, whatever type of business you're building. But nonprofit work always just kind of lit me up because I knew the work that I was doing was for a greater good, for an impact bigger than myself. Um, and I got to see all the success stories come of it. Part of it was with the Alzheimer's. So it was like helping the older generations and families. And then I also worked with the Boys and Girls Club. So I got the younger, the youth, right? Both sides of the spectrum. But so many stories came from that. So many lives changed. And I love doing that. So fast forward a few years ago, I started my own business copywriting. And I kind of just fell into it from a friend. Like, I didn't even really know it was a thing that I could build a business out of it. But I'm like, hey, I like writing. I like telling stories. I've always kind of did this for a nonprofit in a way, like when you're fundraising and you're doing all the development, marketing comes hand in hand with that. Being able to talk to donors and major gift funders, like you have to be able to tell stories. So I worked with a website development company, did their copywriting, and then I went off onto my own so that I could help more women tell their stories and build their businesses. So that's kind of what got me here in a nutshell.
I love that. I love that. I'm really interested too when you decided to start your business, right? Because I feel like that's definitely like a queen move to make, right? Starting your own business. What was that like in your own mindset? Like I think you had mentioned like, and I know this had it happened to me. I was like, can I make a business out of doing this? It's something that I really love, but what is that? I was like, what does this look like, right? So what went through your mind when you were starting that?
Oh, yes. I tend to maybe start things before I'm ready or just jump in and say, I'll figure it out, right? As you had mentioned in the beginning, I have four little boys. When I started, I only had three, but I don't even, I'm going to get the ages wrong. But anyways, I had twins that were, I think, 2 and another one that was 3, right? So I had 3 kids under 3, and I knew that I never wanted to go back into an office full time. I wanted to be able to work my schedule around this. So I kind of was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. There's plenty of other people and women and business owners that need help telling their story. So as much as it's not like the picture perfect textbook, I'm going to start a business, I kind of just went all in and figured it out on as I went and as I worked with people and I hired coaches. Um, because I couldn't have done it all on my own. I couldn't have got to where I am all by myself.
That's so true. You have to invest in yourself. I mean, surround yourself with people. I always say like that know more than you, right? If I didn't have like coaches or attorneys or whatever that team buildup looks like when you're starting a business, I mean, it's just so hard to do.
Yes, 100%. My coach, like the first year in business, I struggled. It was hard. I tried to do it all on my own. And when I hired a coach, I not only met so many other women, but she helped 3x my business and do
Mm.
it. Like it just, because you have someone there that's kind of, they've done it before, right? Why have to make all the hard mistakes first when you can just learn from someone else? So that was really helpful.
So true. So true. And you've worked with so many women that are really passionate about what they do. One of the things I'm curious about from your perspectives are, what is the biggest mindset shifts or maybe messaging challenges you see when it comes to really stepping into visibility?
Definitely. So I think there's a couple, and I will try to keep the try to keep this short, but number one is I think when a lot of women are starting, they are trying to sound like everyone else because they're afraid. It's kind of that imposter syndrome that seems to creep in, like, who am I to share this? Who am I? But it's likely that you've had a ton of experience helping people in the way that you're building business. It just doesn't look exactly like what you're doing right now. But you still have all that experience, all that credibility, like you know what you're doing. So just being able to tune out what everyone else is saying and input your own thoughts and feelings and story. And that can be really hard. Like I sometimes even struggle with this because there's so much out there now, especially with AI and trying to show up and be visible. And more people are starting businesses every day, right? But when I stopped trying to sound like everyone else and just show up for who I am without caring what anyone else thinks, which is really, really hard. But I think that's when people start to stand out, is really just stepping in, owning who you are. But then also the mindset shift of a lot of the women I work with are coaches or consultants or founders, and they're using like the technical jargon or the industry language or like over explaining. And we really just need to keep it very simple. And so those are kind of the two biggest shifts is like you don't need to over explain everything. We just have to keep it simple, creating those big like aha moments and then really stepping into who you are and what your story is.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I remember a couple weeks ago, I was refining my bio. I was sitting there and I was like, I want to include things that, really impacted my career. I want to make sure that people have a good understanding of who I am. It was funny when I was stalling, I was just looking at people I've admired and their bios, right? And I was sitting there and I'm like, wow, this is actually really not helpful because part of me was like, well, I need to say this, or, ooh, I like this beginning sentence. And I tried to like follow what everyone was doing. And partly, sure, it kind of had somewhat of a nice structure, but it also just made it more confusing for me, right? And I love what you say about, you really need to make sure that it's you, right? You don't need to sound like everyone else. I was really struggling with that. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. I definitely could have used your help in that because it's a lot to write your bio. It really is.
Yes. And the other thing I notice when I work with the women that I'm helping is it's really hard to also look from the outside in, right? So someone like me can come in and maybe see all the things that you don't, or kind of take all of these ideas and then refine it down to a story or to a bio or something that flows and
Mhm.
gives all the information that you want, but in a way that's easily digestible. And also, when you said, sometimes it gets to be overwhelming or confusing if you're taking all of these other ideas, it really is. Like,
Mhm.
you can go back and forth so many times with ChatGPT or look at all these, but then you just end up with like more confusion and more of a mess than what you started with. So how do we take it and simplify it? I think is really important. But then one other thing that came up when you were saying that is not feeling like you have to appeal to the masses. And I know everyone talks about niche down, should I or shouldn't I, or if I get too specific. But the less we care about um, trying to please everyone, the more likely it is we're going to please the right people. Or if you
Mhm.
say something bold that it might offend someone, but you're going to attract more of the people that you are meant to serve.
Mhm.
Because I know for you in your business, like you serve a very specific group of people,
Mhm.
right? And so we only are talking to them.
Yes. Oh, that's so true. I love that mindset and that framing. You're right. Like we can't serve everyone and we don't. Our missions are very, specific, right? And I think the first time that we met, I explained this to you too. It's like something with like chess, it's so specific, but when I would just read all the things that I was doing with chess, it would make sense to me, but when I would hand it to somebody else, they were like, "What is this saying?" Right? So having that other expertise in your expertise because you say that good copy isn't just nice to have, it's the heartbeat of a successful business. So tell us more about that. What does that mean to you, right? And how can entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs, start to rethink how they show up with their own words?
100%. I love that. And yes, I say that all the time because your words are everything, right? If you think about it, your words are on your website, they're on your social media posts. It's what you're saying when you're on a podcast interview or when you're in a networking event. Like everything you're saying is how you're building trust with people, how you're setting expectations, how you're guiding people to a decision, right? And so your copy and your words must help people do that and do exactly that is connecting with the right people. And that goes back to that shift of like, you're not for everyone, you're just appealing to those that you want to really connect with. And your words can help do that. Whether it's telling a story, whether it's simply like you're getting them from point A to point B. How are you going to do that? Right? We have to be really strategic so that it can set you apart, but also really connect with the right people that are meant to hear it.
Mhm. Absolutely. One of the things that sets you apart too, which I love, and I'm so excited for this question, is psychology because you have a psychology background, right? And that I can imagine plays such a big role into this, right? Because you combine that storytelling, psychology, and strategy. That's really rooted in your approach. So take us there, right? When you are helping somebody refine their voice, like what does that process look like? And I'm sure that psychology background, communications background you have really plays a role with that.
Yes. So it's funny because when I won't go too far back, but when I was in college, I was very interested in psychology, but then it was like, wow, that's way too much school. I'm not going to continue that. And so I still kept, going after it, but changed my major. And now it's funny that I end up back here. And a lot of what I'm doing plays back into that psychology. And what I say to kind of keep it simple is that people make decisions based on emotion, not just logic. And so in our marketing and our messaging, the things that we're writing and saying, we have to connect on an emotional level with people. And so that's really where the psychology comes in and looking at human behavior and how are people taking action? What are the things that we are saying that help connect with people, that help them to take action? So in our messaging, um, it's really about guiding people to make a decision. And we can do that through story. We can do that through connecting with emotion on diving into, what are they currently struggling with? What are they challenged with? But how we say that is important. And so, just an example here of a lot of times when I'm working with people and we'll kind of go back and forth with ChatGPT. And I like to take people from pain to solution, right? We're diving into where are they now, where do they want to be? And if you just type it into ChatGPT and say, give me a list of pains, give me a list of solutions, it's going to spit a bunch of stuff out at you. And while that's great and while that's important, I go one step further and I actually interview my clients, or I interview my clients, and we talk about what are they struggling with? What is the desired solution that they want? What are their dreams? What are their goals? All of the things, right? And so I'm capturing the real phrases that they're using, the real stories that they're telling, and then we use that in our writing. We use that in our emails, on the sales pages, in the stories we're telling, because it's using the real voice of your customer. And so the deeper that we can connect, again, that goes back to the psychology of people are making those decisions based on emotion. And so how can we connect that in order to guide them to action? Does that make sense, or was that confusing?
Well, that
In
makes
the way that
sense.
I explained it.
I love when you talk about interviewing. That's so important because here, seeing their perspective, we might view it in one way, right, when we're working with our client. But when you interview them, right, that brings on a whole new dimension. I love that.
Yes, it is. It is. I have had so many wins from just doing that. Like my clients have had wins because it's a whole new perspective that you might not have seen before. When we can really dig in and see not just how you explain it, but how do they explain it.
Mhm.
And it just starts to connect a lot easier and a lot faster, and just brings those right people in.
Mhm. And this might go into this question I have about, automation and making, processes accessible, right? But you mentioned now, right, that you and your clients, like, you actually use ChatGPT, right, and sort of work with that. Can you talk to me about that? Because I've seen people just use it and they don't edit it. They just put it
Yeah.
in and they're like, okay, I have it. So walk me through that. I'm very fascinated.
Oh, yes. And to your point of there are a lot of people that I used to follow that I like. I loved reading their newsletters, and now I can tell they're just copy and pasted AI, and it's so frustrating. And yes, I do use AI. I use it every single day. I use ChatGPT. But what I have done is created different frameworks and structures inside of my ChatGPT. And I do that for all of my clients. I have frameworks that I put in, but then what we do is we take the interview question, take the interviews, take the surveys we've done, like the real market research, and plug that into ChatGPT. We've taken conversations, voices, we plug that into their ChatGPT. So it learns to write like them and it understands exactly who they're talking to and how that person is talking. And that way, chat can spit out things that sound a lot more natural. But it's also like having a conversation with chat. Like, I chat a lot, like, I don't like this. People do not talk this way. And sometimes I'm getting really mad at my chat GPT because I'm like, people don't talk in this way. And so people would probably laugh if they seen some of the conversations I have with my chat, but I think it's just giving it the information, and it goes back to that market research and how important that is, especially now when trust and connection are very important.
Yes. I'm so glad you mentioned about, like, it's hard sometimes to read people's things now because even just emails, like,
Yes.
there are indicators. There really are. I don't know if you've, like, what your thoughts on this are, but, like, I just see, like, it can even just be like the way the sentence is structured or certain terms that are used, or even if they forget to just like edit certain things. Like, I'm not saying this is a huge indication, but sometimes when you see the especially long dashes and things like that, it's just interesting. I don't know, like, what are some of the things that you might see that you're like, Yeah, this might not be edited. This might just be ChatGPT.
Yes. So it's funny. So the M dashes, there are a lot more of them now. Like I used to use before ChatGPT, I used them in my writing, but now they are everywhere. So it's funny because now I'm like, okay, should I use that? Should I not use it? And I'm like, stop. What would past Haley use? Right? Like
Yes.
use this in my writing before I had AI. But then also where it's not about this, it's about that. Or, there's just those phrases that really annoy me now. I don't I
Mm.
don't know how else to explain it. Um, but I always just say to my clients who are doing their own writing or am I done for you is like, read it out loud first. And if it sounds funny to you when you're reading it out loud, it's likely going to sound funny to the person reading it on the screen. Uh,
Mhm.
and just kind of giving it that final like proof check before you hit post or before you hit send.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And even something like coming up with like questions for a podcast or questions in an interview or refining certain things. I mean, I think that it can provide such a great foundation, but you still need to do that work of, you know what? Let me refine this, right? Let me change this. Even when I might ask it like chess things, it gets it wrong, right? Certainly can't do chess. It puts pieces on the board that aren't even there, right? But it's a tool, and I think that's so important. Um, and that's really what your work centers around.
100%. Yes.
Now, you are a mom of four boys, and you're an entrepreneur, business owner. You're navigating so many things. A lot of women are interested in your response to this because they submitted these questions. What does balance look like for you? Like beginning and end, right? I feel like as entrepreneurs, especially during COVID, the workday shifted, right? It wasn't just like we were like, we're going to start this time and end at this time. We're responding emails late at night. We're doing all of the things. So I'm curious from your perspective, talk about balance. Like, how do you really protect your energy, still show up for your clients, do all the things that you need to do, and are there as a mom?
Yes. Great question. So I will start by saying I am always working on this and I am always trying to be better. But there are things that I have done that have really helped. So I only have 4-day work weeks. So I have Monday through Thursday. Fridays are home with my kids. And that's really important. So keeping that coveted is like keeping my Fridays off. I do not schedule meetings on Fridays. That doesn't mean I don't like wake up and work a little bit before my kids wake up while I have my coffee. To me, I love doing that, right? I like to just get some of those things done in silence and peace when I have time to myself. But Fridays I have off. And then when I first started, I was taking meetings from anybody and everybody at any time of day, right? So now I have set my calendar to be Tuesdays and Thursdays are my meeting days. So people can schedule meetings from noon to 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Mondays are off for me working on my business, getting things out I need to do. And then like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings are all for client work or delivering. So just being able to set up my week in a way that allows me to be on when I need to be on. And then at night when my kids are home, it's just them. And that doesn't mean I need to work on not checking my email on my phone or being distracted when I get a Voxer notice. Like those are things I am still working on. But my ultimate goal is to be fully present with my kids when I am with them and fully present in work when I am at work. And I don't know, I never think there's like a full balance as an entrepreneur because our business and our lives just coexist, right? It's never like, this is work, this is home. To me, sometimes they're all one. My husband also has his own business, so we're both entrepreneurs and I do a lot of stuff for his business as well. So it's just, it's fitting it in a way that works for our family because everyone is different and the way that everyone operates is different, right?
Mm, I love that. I love how you broke that schedule down. That's so important because I sort of tried to take a similar approach to where, we need to be sometimes protective of our time and understand that, you know, some days when I'm full of meetings, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I didn't do enough work today. But it's like, no, my work was all these meetings and all the things that I needed to do, right? But I also have other work too. So it's also that mindset too, of just, trusting yourself. And I love how you scheduled your work week out. And I think the calendars and things that we can do now, sending people our calendars, having it blocked out time, like that's so helpful.
That has been so helpful, and that made me think of one other thing I wanted to bring up that I learned from a coach that was incredibly helpful for me, and I think it might be helpful for the listeners, but we all have to-do lists that are a mile long, right? And so some days, like you said, when you have a whole bunch of meetings, it can feel like, "What did I even do today?" or "What did I get done?" And so I implemented this system that my coach taught me is I have 3 things that I have on my list. And if I do those 3 things, I feel accomplished. And it's super simple, but one is mindset and energy. And so for me, that's either journaling or going on my work, something to, you know, self-care, basically. Number 2 is nurturing current clients or referral partners. So that could be as simple as starting a project, delivering something to a client, or sending an email. And the third could be a sales activity because I need to do sales to keep my business running. So again, whether it's a um, DM on LinkedIn or an email or a Voxer note, like just one sales activity. So if I do those 3 things every day, I feel like I have accomplished something and I am on track.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. Even just the simple thing of like feeling like you've checked that off, right? Just
Yes.
something off.
Yes.
Making lists manageable. I know I used to do lists where I was like, here's everything I have to do. And I would look at it and be like, where do I start? It's like outlining all of the things. I love what you mentioned too about getting something to a client, or like
Mhm.
people forget, I think too, like we have our current clients, but we also need to keep building out the pipeline. That never stops. Business development is always there.
Yes. 100%.
Absolutely. You've helped so many people, especially women, really grow their businesses. I want to ask you a question now about legacy. I feel like we might get this thought or question a lot, especially in entrepreneurship, as business owners. Given all the work that you've done now, helping women grow really sustainable, value aligned businesses, what does legacy mean to you now? Not just in your business world, but in your life right now. What does that mean to you?
Yes, I think this is a really powerful question. And I would say part of what I'm doing is not only helping other women build their businesses and make an impact on the greater good, right? Like if I can just help one woman, I know it's not just helping her. It's helping more people, more communities, right? It has that ripple effect. But when I really think about legacy, it's knowing that my kids are watching me too. And our next generation is our future as well. And so I want the young people and the kids and my kids to see that they can create something meaningful. And I know this sounds cliche, but like dreams can come true. You just have to chase them and believe that they can come true. And so doing something meaningful and just still having that life outside of, for me, life and work kind of blend, but I'm doing something for a purpose. So I don't know if that explained it really well, but I think just knowing that my kids are watching, and I am always a very optimistic person because I do believe that where our energy goes, things happen, things start to come because that's what we're focused on. And if we know and believe our dreams can come true, they will.
Love that. I love that so much. That's so powerful and it's so true. And, you know, families watching. I watched my parents, I remember my mom working, at night because she would homeschool us during the day when we were really little. Like it's the balance. You notice what things that your parents are doing. And I think your kids are so lucky and it's so powerful. They see their parents and they see you helping people, right? Helping people really build and strengthen their businesses. That's so powerful. Um, in your perspective, right? There's women that are listening to this right now. Maybe they're struggling to get their message to click. Maybe they are just at a loss. Maybe they don't even know where to start. Do you have a piece of advice that you could give them? Maybe it's a messaging tip, maybe it's a copy tip, something that they can put into practice today that's going to help them really refine what they're doing and push them in the right direction.
Yes. Oh gosh, there's so many, but I think a couple is if you look at things that you've written, or let's say your website or a sales page or a post, does the reader know exactly what you do, exactly who you help, and exactly how they can buy from you off the bat? Like you have to be extremely clear and specific without using fluffy words or things people don't need to know. Just keep it super clear. So, what's the one decision you want them to make after reading this? Do they know it's for them? And then, write for that or pick one of your favorite clients. I always say this, like for me, writing got so much easier when I just thought of one specific person and I wrote to them. So I would say that can be really powerful. Is just always look at what's the decision you want them to make and do they know exactly how you are going to help them get what they want?
That's so powerful. I love that. That's true. It makes me think more about what I'm doing, right? I mean, we're so focused sometimes on trying to sell everything and making the right brand, but is it clear enough that like if I went on to my own website not knowing anything about it, would I actually understand what I'm saying? There's this woman that I follow on social media and she runs a really amazing website company, and she was saying how there were some comments on her website that came in, and they were saying how like they loved the design of the website, but they didn't know what they offered. Were they only doing websites for high-end people? Were they doing like they didn't know what they were doing. And she's like, at first I felt really offended. Like at first I felt like they were like, you don't know what I'm saying? Like I do websites for a living. My website's amazing. And then she was like, wait, I'm doing amazing websites for other people, but mine might not even be clear in what I'm doing. So I love that advice. That's so key.
Yes. And oh, there are so many times that happens, even with myself as I'm thinking, because I was thinking the other day, like, I really need to update my website. So it's funny that you say that because it's like I help other women do that. And sometimes I leave my own until the very end. So it's
Yes.
okay if that's you.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Haley, we end every question or every episode of Queen Me with this question, and that is, what does it mean to unleash your inner queen, and how do you tap into that power in your own life and leadership?
I love that. I think for me, it's again, I'm learning to do this, and there's something I always recently have started saying is I am already her. I am her, right? It's not the future version of her. Like I am already her. And so I need to trust my own voice and not wait for that permission, or shrinking myself to make other people comfortable. So I am already her. And I need to just show up as her. And so that for me is just checking in daily. And when there's a decision, what would I do? Right? What would I do differently?
I love that. That's so true. You already are that person. You really are. I mean, look at all that you've accomplished and continue to do. And I'm just so excited for us to work together, because I know that, I've mentioned that I want to get your support and your feedback because, if you go to thecopyshift.com, you're going to just see a lot of amazing things. There's a template shop, you have a podcast, right? There's all these amazing things. I'm excited to see that and how women can really connect with you and hear from you and your insight. Do you want to do a quick plug for your podcast? Because I'd love people to hear about it as well.
Yes. Well, thank you, Ashley. I appreciate all of your kind words. My podcast, which I'm going to have you on there as well, is called Success Unscripted. And so to me, I think a lot of times we start out chasing someone else's version of success.
Mhm.
And it's really important to define our own version of success. What
Mm,
does success mean to us? Because it's different for everyone. And there's so many women around me that I see are chasing someone else's version of success, even
mm,
though they want something different. So the podcast is meant to tell other people's stories, lift other women up, and inspire more women to do the hard things, to grow their businesses, you know, to really define success on their own terms. And of course, I talk all about copy and messaging, but the bigger part of it is to lift other women up and inspire.
mm. I love it. I love it. And we'll, of course, include all the links and everything when we release this episode. But you're just helping so many women write their own success stories, like quite literally. And you just have this heart, this strategy, the storytelling. I've loved getting to know you. You're just such an amazing advocate and so accomplished. And you're continuing to help entrepreneurs show up and really build their businesses. So if you want to learn more about Hailey's work, you can visit thecopyshift.com. You could follow her on social media. We'll, of course, include all of the links, but we're so excited for you all to listen to this and to, continue to follow Hailey and all the impact that she's making. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review because every time that you do, you help somebody else unleash their inner queen. So thank you all so much, and thank you so much, Hailey, for all of your work.
Thank you so much for having me.